President, is there anything China, Canada, and Mexico can do tonight to forestall your implementation of tariffs tomorrow?
No, nothing. Not right now, no.
Not a negotiating tool?
No, it's not. No, it's a pure economic. We have big deficits with, as you know, with all three of them. And in one case, they're sending massive amounts of fentanyl, killing hundreds of thousands of people a year with the fentanyl.
Canada will be responding to the U.S. trade action with 25% tariffs against $155 billion worth of American goods. This will include immediate tariffs on $30 billion worth of goods as of Tuesday, followed by further tariffs on $125 billion worth of American products in 21 days' time to allow Canadian companies and supply chains to seek to find alternatives. Like the American tariffs, our response will also be far-reaching and include everyday items such as American beer, wine, and bourbon, fruits and fruit juices, including orange juice, along with vegetables, perfume, clothing, and shoes. It'll include major consumer products like household appliances, furniture, and sports equipment, and materials like lumber and plastics, along with much, much more. And as part of our response, we are considering, with the provinces and territories, several non-tariff measures, including some relating to critical minerals, energy, procurement, and other partnerships. We will stand strong for Canada. We will stand strong to ensure our countries continue to be the best neighbors in the world.
Canada won't bow down to a bully, and we won't stand by as tariffs hurt our workers and their families. Trump wants us to lose our cool and to cave in. That's why Canadians need to be united with the right response. Dollar-for-dollar tariffs against the U.S. A plan to buy Canadian. A coordinated strategy to boost investment and support our workers. And initiatives to make our economy work better and to diversify our trading partners. Let me be clear. This couldn't be more serious. And in moments of crisis, we need serious leadership and a serious plan. Trump thinks we're pushovers, but he doesn't know Canadians. We will always stand up for our country, and we will get stronger together.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. We must put Canada first. And that is why common-sense conservatives condemn President Trump's massive, unjust, and unjustified tariffs, which will damage both American and Canadian economies. Canada is the United States' closest friend, greatest ally, and, most important, neighbor. We share the longest undefended border. We fought alongside the Americans in 2 world wars, Korea, and Afghanistan, where we lost 158 of our brilliant young men and women to avenge the attacks of 9/11 on New York and Washington. There is no justification whatsoever for these tariffs or this treatment. Canada will never be the 51st state. We are an independent, proud, and strong nation. I'd like to speak first to our American friends. You are our friends. You are our neighbors. We share the longest undefended border in the history of the world. You buy our products, and we buy yours. You have a trade surplus with us when energy is excluded. And when it is included, the deal is even better for you because you buy our oil and our gas at massive price discounts. Not because we're nice Canadians, but because here at home we've made really dumb decisions to prevent us from exporting our energy to any other countries. But either way, Americans are better off with this friendship. We share a continent, we share the same risks and the same potential enemies from around the world. Those kinds of enemies can metastasize into real dangers and actual attacks, as you saw suddenly and unexpectedly on 9/11. It's good to have friends when those sorts of things happen. And let me ask my American friends this question. Even if you believe in tariffs, how is it possible to put a 25% tariff on Canada and only a 10% tariff on China? In what strategic mindset does that make sense? If it's to do with fentanyl, the fentanyl is coming from China. It's killing our people too. We both have to do more to stop it, but we can do more when we do it together. Now, here at home, my message to the Liberal government: put aside partisan interests and recall Parliament. It is insane that in this great crisis, Parliament is shut down to deal with a crisis and a power struggle within the Liberal Party. Let's put aside partisan, political interests and recall Parliament to pass into place a common sense Canada First plan. And here's that plan. 1, we must retaliate dollar for dollar, carefully aiming those tariffs at maximizing the impact on American companies while minimizing the impact on Canadian. We must maximize the impact on American companies while minimizing the impact on Canadian consumers and businesses. That means targeting U.S. products that A, we can do without, B, we can buy elsewhere, or C, best of all, that we can make here at home. That best example of that would be steel and aluminum. We make the best and cleanest steel and aluminum here, but we've lost a lot of jobs to China and the United States. We should put tariffs on American steel and aluminum so that we can bring home that production to this country. 2, the tariffs must not be a tax grab. None of the money from the tariffs should stay in government coffers or be spent on unrelated government priorities. All of it should go back to the workers and businesses that are affected, and most of it should go back in the form of a massive tax cut. And that is why I'm calling for the passage of an immediate emergency bring it home tax cut. The tax cut would be designed to save jobs, create jobs, crush inflation, and boost our economy. We need to cut taxes on work, investment, energy, home building, and making stuff at home. Let's start by axing the Liberal carbon tax and the Liberal capital gains tax hike. They should be the first on the chopping block. 4, we must immediately scrap the Liberal anti-energy law C-69 and greenlight job-creating projects now. That includes LNG plants, pipelines, mines, factories, port expansions, so that we can get our products to overseas markets without going through and profiting the United States. It was insane for us to block our industries before this crisis. It is a fatal mistake now. No longer can we tolerate special interests, politicians, and worst of all, corporate lobbyists who profit by shutting down industries, blocking resources in Canada while profiting off them in Brazil, the Middle East, China, and elsewhere. We must bring home production and self-reliance to our country. Which brings me to 5. We need to knock down interprovincial trade barriers to have truly free trade across our country. We are in this state because we sell twice as much to the Americans as we sell to ourselves. These interprovincial barriers are destructive, they kill jobs, they drive up consumer prices, and they cost the average family $6,000 a year. Let's knock them down, and let's be a truly free trading economy ourselves. 6, we must rebuild our military and take back control of our borders to regain the confidence of our partners, assert our sovereignty, protect our people, and put Canada first. Let us be clear. Our border needs to be taken back into our control, not to please the President, but to protect our own people. The fact that we have 20,000 to 500,000 people here illegally, according to the government, was a problem before these tariffs. The fact that we've lost 47,000 people to fentanyl overdoses should never have been allowed to happen. We must secure our border to stop the guns that are killing our people. 85% of gun crime is done with illegal guns smuggled over the border. We must secure our border, again, to protect our own people and save the lives of our own children. And we must rebuild our military to protect our sovereignty, assert our strength, and keep our nation strong and free. Finally, we must lock arms with American economic interests that favor Canada, the workers and businesses that depend on trade with Canada should be marshaled to pressure the administration to back down. We must go to key states that will be up for grabs in the congressional elections 2 years from now and let their congressmen and senators know that they will be running on a bad economic record if refinery workers have lost jobs because Canadian oil can no longer make it to them, or if young families can't buy homes because lumber is even more expensive for home builders, or families that are already suffering from inflation are paying more for gas because our energy has become more expensive due to American tariffs. We must lock arms with all of those economic interests in the states to build an American coalition against the tariffs and in favor of free trade between our two great countries. As always, we will stand strong with growing confidence. We are the second biggest landmass in the world, 41 million brilliant people, the third biggest supply of oil, fifth biggest supply of natural gas, biggest supply of uranium and potash. We have not 1, 2, or 3 coasts. We have, if you include the Great Lakes, we actually have 4 coasts that can take us to tide water. We have the biggest supply of fresh water anywhere on Earth, the 5th biggest supply of farmland. We should be the richest nation on Earth. These tariffs are a wake-up call that it is time for us to meet our potential. It is time for us to be a country that can trade with itself, a country that builds homes quickly for its youth, a country that allows entrepreneurs to succeed quickly and profitably so that success is once again rewarded, a country that allows hard work to pay off, a country that harvests its own resources, that secures its borders to protect its people, that builds its military to protect its sovereignty, unites its people to protect our common history and common future. We will always put Canada first, today, tomorrow, and forever. Let's bring it home.
For our first of many steps, effective today, I have directed BC liquor sales to immediately stop buying American liquor from red states. Liquor store employees will be removing the most popular of these brands from government store shelves.
This hour, President Trump signing aggressive new tariffs on some of America's biggest trading partners, 25% tariffs on goods coming in from U.S. and from Canada, 10% on Canadian energy, and an additional 10% on Chinese imports. Joining us now, the Premier of Ontario, Doug Ford. Thank you so much for being here with us. These tariffs, brand new, just signed within the last hour. I first just want your initial reaction, because you have said you plan to rain down economic punishment on America in response to these. What do you think comes next?
Well, first of all, Jessica, I just want to send our prayers and thoughts to the family that lost loved ones in the aviation accident. It's a tragedy. As for the tariffs, it was unjustified. It's unfair. And frankly, it was illegal, breaking a deal that we had with the USMCA deal, and it's disappointing. Canada and Canadians love the U.S. I love the U.S. I love the American people. We're your closest ally and trading partner, your largest export destination in the entire world. This is going to hurt Americans. It's going to hurt Canadians. We're going to see inflation happen down in the U.S. and in Canada. And it's unjustified.
And so what steps will Canada take next? I mean, we are expecting to hear from your prime minister. He was supposed to speak within the hour. Obviously, we have been monitoring the NTSB update. But what do you think happens? What does Canada do now?
Well, we'll have retaliatory measures. It's unfortunate. We don't want to do it. We'd rather have a strong trading partner with the U.S., build an AMCAN fortress. We want to ship down more products, more critical minerals, more oil. That's what we want to do. But I can assure you what President Trump underestimates, the resilience of the Canadian people, the strength of the Canadian people. No matter what political stripe you come from in Canada, we're united. We're a united country, and we're a proud country.
And when you say retaliatory measures, is that retaliatory tariffs, you believe?
Yes, there'll be retaliatory tariffs, and the Prime Minister will announce that shortly.
And is there any sense, do you have any more details on those before I move on from that?
I'll leave that up to the Prime Minister to speak for the country. But what I can tell you, we're the #1 export destination for 28 states across the country. Ontario alone, we're the #1 trading partner, #1 customer per se, for 17 states, and #2 to 11 others. We do $500 billion of trade on both sides of the border, split equally down the center. And 9 million Americans wake up every morning, Jessica, to produce products for Ontario alone, not to mention the rest of the country. And what's really disturbing when President Trump is using fentanyl as a reason, lumping us in with Mexico and China. The figures from U.S. Customs is very clear. There's over 9,600 kilos coming of fentanyl coming from Mexico. Ours is 19 kilos, which is too much, which is 0.001% of fentanyl compared to Mexico coming into the U.S., compared to over 25,000 kilos of narcotics, be it heroin or cocaine, opioids, coming from the U.S. into Canada. We have a strong relationship with the U.S. Customs. Our customs officers work collaboratively with them, working with the DEA. Our RCMP is working collaboratively. I can tell the American people, Canada is not the problem. The problem is the Mexican border and China. That's where the problem is.
And do you have any sense yet of timing? Do you, as a member of the Canadian government, know when the U.S. tariffs on Canadian products will take place, will go into action?
Well, what I understand, what I've heard, that they're going to be very soon, almost immediate. And why President Trump would want to attack his largest customer per se, largest trading partner, closest ally, that this goes back to all the way back to 1867. We have stood shoulder to shoulder with Americans during World War I, World War II, 9/11. We sent our troops over to stand shoulder to shoulder with American troops. We lost soldiers standing up for our family, and we consider the U.S. part of our family.
And I am curious what you think the relationship will be like going forward between Canada and the U.S. And if you all have any sense, because the sense that we've gotten from our reporting is that, especially for the Canadian representatives, it's a bit nebulous, in fact, a lot nebulous, as to exactly what you're supposed to do to get rid of these tariffs. What is the marker for, I mean, it's very wide. It's no fentanyl deaths in the U.S., but what does that practically look like?
Well, that's just not realistic when, we're responsible for 0.001% compared to Mexico. I think the president has to look at the southern border. He has to work with the Mexican president. He has to work with his DEA to stop the flow of drugs and the precursors that are coming up from China into Mexico, up through the United States and into Canada. As I said, we have over 25,000 kilos that has been apprehended coming from the U.S. into Canada. 95% of all illegal guns are coming in to Canada that are being used in heinous crimes, and illegals are coming up. My point is, let's work together. Let's work collaboratively together and protect our borders on both sides of the borders. But we're the two strongest nations in the world if we work together. The U.S. is reliant on our crude oil, on our uranium, on our potash, on our high-grade nickel, on our electricity. Ontario powers 1.5 million homes, keeps the lights on in New York, in Michigan, in Minnesota, and many other areas. We need to work together. We're stronger together.
And how do you expect this to go in terms of the effects on your economy, the American economy, you know, these two border nations? What do you think the effect is going to be in the short term?
Well, it's going to be terrible. It's going to make Americans poor. It's going to create inflation. It's going to make Canadians poor. It's going to really hurt both economies. And all we're saying is, let's work together. Please do not lump us in with Mexico and China. We're your closest ally, your number one customer, and we stood shoulder to shoulder on many, many different fronts. We love the Americans and we love the U.S.
And, you know, it's interesting because I hear what you're saying. And if you look at the numbers, you're right. There is a false equivalency between Canada and Mexico and what is coming in from the southern border and what is coming in from the northern border with Canada. And I hear your frustration. And so my question to you is, what's the alternative here? Do you think that it should just be tariffs on Mexico, no tariffs on Canada? What would you suggest?
Oh, that's up to the president to decide. But we are no Mexico. We're Canadians. We're strong. We're resilient. We're proud. And we're going to stand up for what's right. And what's right is making sure that we protect our economy, protect the people, protect the families, and protect the communities right across this great country of ours. And again, we have no animosity towards the American people or the U.S. as a whole. We love them. And a lot of Americans live in Canada, and a lot of Canadians live in the U.S.
All right, Doug Ford, we are expecting to see now tariffs on American goods going into Canada. Thank you so much for being here with us. We really appreciate it.
Well, Jessica, thank you so much, and God bless Canada and God bless America.
Thank you. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
We are here this morning, my friends, as an unlikely group with leaders from across the political spectrum who've come together with cultural leaders, artists, academics, athletes, labor activists, and Indigenous militant activists. We represent the incredible regions of our beautiful country, and we are here for one reason. Our nation, our beloved Canada, is under threat. It is an economic threat, but it's also a threat to our values of decency and inclusion. It's a threat to our sovereignty and our very future as a nation. The threat comes, of course, from the President of the United States, a convicted felon and known predator. He's threatening massive tariffs to try and break us as a people. But the threat is also being driven by the hate algorithms of the oligarchs like Elon Musk. And there is the threat from people in our own country who would sell out our birthright to appease the gangster class from Mar-a-Lago. That is not going to happen.
And he will continue to effectively utilize tariffs.
If those tariffs do increase prices for Americans, will the administration reverse them?
That's a hypothetical question, and the president is intent on ensuring that he effectively implements tariffs while cutting inflation and costs for the American people. And, you know, the media has this way of just looking at everything in a microscope rather than looking at the whole of government economic approach that this president is taking. He will effectively implement tariffs. He's also, as I just answered from Stephen's question, committed to tax cuts. He's also clearly committed, as evidenced by his executive orders, to unleashing the might of our energy industry, which we know will eventually drive down inflation, and all the other economic measures that this president has made will have a Trump incoming economic boom, just like we saw in our first term.
And has the White House found any?
Canada's been very abusive of the United States for many years. They don't allow our banks. Did you know that? Canada does not allow banks to go in. If you think about it, that's pretty amazing. If we have a U.S. bank, they don't allow them to go in. Canada's been very tough on oil, on energy. They don't allow our farm products in, essentially. They don't allow a lot of things in, and we allow everything to come in. It's been a one-way street. We subsidize Canada by the tune of about $200 billion a year. And for what? What do we get out of it? We don't get anything out of it. I love the people of Canada. I disagree with the leadership of Canada. And something's going to happen there. But if they want to play the game, I don't mind. We can play the game all they want. Mexico, we've had very good talks with them. And this is retaliatory. This is retaliatory to a certain extent. Millions of people flowed into our country through Mexico and Canada. And we're not going to allow that. And by the way, we have among the lowest numbers we've ever had of people crossing our border, the lowest numbers since my administration. Well, you're asking me a question because I'm sure you didn't hear. Am I going to impose tariffs on the European Union? Do you want the truthful answer, or should I give you a political answer? Absolutely. So the UK is way out of line, and we'll see. The UK, but European Union is really out of line. UK is out of line, but I'm sure that one, I think that one can be worked out. But the European Union it's an atrocity, what they've done. No, I'm not concerned. We may have short-term some little pain, and people understand that. But long-term, the United States has been ripped off by virtually every country in the world. We have deficits with almost every country. Not every country, but almost. And we're going to change it. It's been unfair. That's why we owe $36 trillion. We have deficits with everybody. We help everybody. We've been helping everybody for years. And to be honest, I don't think they appreciate it. So we're going to change that. We're going to change it fast. We're going to make America great again. We have to focus on our country. We have tremendous potential if properly used, and we have to focus on our country. Tremendous deficits with China, tremendous deficits with the European Union, tremendous deficits with Mexico and Canada. And why? What's the purpose of that? Why would we have deficits? And you look at if you look at pharmaceuticals and drugs, if you look at various products, it's much cheaper in other countries. We're not going to allow that much longer. We're not going to take it. I had almost no inflation, and yet I charged hundreds of billions of dollars of tariffs to countries. And think of it, I had almost no inflation, and I took in $600 billion of money from other countries. And tariffs don't cause inflation, they cause success. They cause big success. So we're going to have great success.